to the Postmodern Art Podcast, the podcast dedicated to giving artists who are wowing the world over the platform they deserve. I am your host, Nathan Ragland, and for today's episode, I must start off by saying, be not afraid. For today's guest, even though their art could conjure certain fear, maybe even a little bit of dread, you will find before you a fantastic conversation that features a surprising amount of bread. Today's guest is Lulu VanHoagland, a self-described eldritch abomination on top of being an artist of several sensational pins, merch, and prints, among many other things that bring forth the melancholy and macabre into your life. Lulu is someone that I found at MomoCon earlier this year, and I was absolutely just stunned with the art designs that they have for the merch that they were selling. I made sure to get a good bit. Trust me, we'll discuss that in the episode. But after doing some deep diving and seeing some of the other stuff that she had developed more than anything else, I knew I had to get her on this podcast to talk about such incredible stuff. Before we do dive into today's episode, I am going to give you guys a bit of a content trigger warning, whatever. If you personally suffer from trypophobia or, fear of holes, bumps, stuff along the lines of that, it's probably better that you listen to this episode than watch it. We talk about it a little bit, but especially when it comes to some of the visuals that will be flashing up more than anything else, there will be some pieces of art that she has done that might trigger that just a little bit. So I sincerely hope you still do listen, because it is a fantastic conversation. Just want to give you that heads up. If you have trypophobia, proceed with caution. If you enjoy our guest, please make sure you support her with the links down in the description below. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer, as well as go ahead and check out our merch shop and maybe even check out the Discord server if you want a cool place to hang out. While we're at it, let's go ahead and help out another former guest of the podcast while we're here. If you guys remember, a while back, I brought on a fantastic guest, Kayla Davis, to talk about her indie animated show, Skelly. She did a Kickstarter. It was successful, but she needs just a little bit more. The Kickstarter was able to fund just the bare minimum, and she would be able to provide more, but she also recently just lost her full-time job, so money is already a little bit tight. So, if you want to help make this pilot a reality about a fantastic story that, again, I have talked about previously, I can link the episode in the description below if you want to understand why you would donate for a fantastic cause. Also, while you're in the description below, check out the GoFundMe that Kayla has set up in order to finish the last little bit that she needs to get Skelly fully taken care of. She's only asking for $2,400. She's already over halfway there. So if you want to help get her closer to that end, donate if you can, or at least spread the word if you can't. But now, without further ado, please enjoy the Postmodern Art Podcast. Alright, Lulu, before we really do get going, I must ask the icebreaker question of the podcast, if I may. Let's say you get to go to a deserted island on your own accord. It's just you, alone with your thoughts. You get to kick back, relax, breathe, get to really enjoy yourself for a little bit. With accommodations. I shouldn't say deserted island. I always say deserted island, but I make it more like a personal B&B paradise away from society for a little bit, all the amenities and everything. To make sure you don't go completely insane on this island, you can bring one piece of media or one piece of art with you to help with whatever kind of headspace you want on this island. If given this opportunity, what would that one piece be?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, and this is like a more recent thing I was into, like as of I think last year or earlier this year.
Okay.
Dragon Quest XI.
Ooh.
I poured so many hours into Dragon Quest XI.
I mean, that's extremely... I mean, let's be honest, the entire, Dragon Quest series as a whole, you could really, invest a lot of time into that. But what was it about 11 in particular, that's the go-to one that you want to get?
So, I got it on a whim because I am a huge Future Trunks fan, and the Luminary in that one is just what if they gave Trunks brown hair?
Okay.
Right? And so, I was already there. I was like, great, perfect, love this for me. And then the first character you get in your party, his name is Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And it's man, immediately these two characters are like OTP status. And so I literally played the game for over 100 hours
Oh wow.
just to get to the quest. Like there's a thing at the end of the game where you can win a prize of having a roommate forever, which is like a weird prize, but it has to do with like plot stuff.
Right,
And
right,
I was
right.
like, you can choose anyone in your party. And I was like, no, Eric's gonna be the Luminary's roommate forever.
Right, exactly.
Like I played the entire game and like most of the plot of that game is actually surprisingly good. And
Okay.
the characterization in that game is really good. I had a lot of fun. But
No, that's good.
I mostly played the game just to get that.
You just played the game so we could have the moment of, oh my god, they were roommates.
Yes, exactly.
No, honestly, that is extremely valid more than anything else. I mean, people have poured more time into games for less important reasons. Let's be honest with ourselves here. Um, but regardless, Dragon Quest XI, that's your answer. You're locking that in.
I'm locking that in.
Then if that's the case, I cannot think of a better way to start the Postmodern Art Podcast. Welcome everyone, I am your host, Nathan Ragland. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. You would look fantastic in the merch we have at the merch shop, fourthwall.com. Link to that is in the description below. And follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and most social media platforms at PostmodArtPod for future updates and guest announcements, including today's guest. She is a self-described eldritch abomination, on top of being an artist of several sensational pins, merch, and prints that bring a bit of the melancholy and macabre into your life. Welcome to the podcast, Lulu VanHoagland!
Hi.
How you doing today, Lulu?
I woke up this morning, so that's something.
That is both a vibe and a mood, and again, I am right there with you. Well, thank you for not only waking up, but thank you for taking the time to be here today. I told this to you before we really got the recording going or whatnot, but I noticed your stuff. Me and my good friend Corey Beepington noticed your stuff at MomoCon earlier this year. I know Corey was absolutely insane about the blind bags that you had on sale. Just out of curiosity, I don't know if you kept count. How many blind bags of pins did we buy from you?
I don't know. MomoCon was interesting for that because aside from your friend, there was a Spanish woman who I think was just enthralled that I had angel things, and she kept buying the blind. She like, bought all of them. It was crazy.
Wow. That's incredible. I like how it's like when people find that specific thing, it's like, I not only just want one of it, I want all of it.
Yes.
But regardless, ever since I first saw you at MomoCon, I first saw your art, I was absolutely enamored, and I have been waiting for the opportunity to bring you on the podcast to talk about like what inspired this kind of incredible, unique, again, macabre art that you are presenting more than anything else. But before we talk about the stuff you're doing nowadays, I want to go back just a little bit and learn more or less the origin story of Lulu. What got you interested in the arts in the first place?
So when I was a kid, my dad was really into like old anime stuff. Like he had the original Astro Boy on VHS tapes.
Oh, wow.
And he would go on and on about how he was so angry that Gigantor was imported to America because it meant that Astro Boy got canceled. 'Cause I
Oh,
guess at that time you could only have like one piece of Japanese media at a time or something.
right.
But I grew up watching that, and on my mom's side, almost all of the women are in the creative arts in some way. Like my mom was a makeup artist, and
Oh,
my grandma would show me her like drawings from when she was a kid, so I was always encouraged to like be a creative person. And so when I said that I wanted to go to high school for art, that was a no-brainer. Of course I could do that, and the same went for college. And
okay.
I went to SVA to be a comic book artist.
Oh, okay. Honestly, that makes sense given some of the stuff we're going to be talking about here in a second. I wanted to take a step back, going back to like that first little bit of origin. It must be really intriguing, or at least like really cool to think that like early on you had that kind of like love and support of people in the art community that whenever you decided to do it yourself, like they were all on board, like, yes, let's go ahead and go forward with it. Even like you said, going to an art high school, which for someone that's probably outside of where you live, that sounds very unique, because I just went to a standard public school, so I didn't realize there was like dedicated art high schools.
I mean, New York definitely has like a more standardized high schools too,
Mm-hmm.
but I think because a lot of people from the entertainment industry in general come from here, being able to go to a school that's more focused on arts, there's like quite a few of them.
Okay.
Um, the one I went to was technically an arts and sciences school, and I got in for both
Oh,
because
nice.
when I was in middle school, I had won like the science fair at like a city level or something. I don't even remember. It's been a long time, but yeah.
No, honestly, that's still like really cool. The fact that, hey, you could have just been solely focused on the arts, but the fact you're also like have that knowledge to be good enough in science to be a part of that field as well. That's saying something. That's actually really impressive, and especially given some of the way that some of the science may have influenced your art is something that we might touch upon later on in the conversation. Um, I'm curious, when did for you go from like just a general love and appreciation, like being exposed to it by your dad and by your mom's side of the family, to a passion and truly wanting to make it your career? Like when did it ultimately click in your head that you want to be that artist and thus going to the art high school and college and such?
I'm not gonna lie, I think I've kind of always been a person that was very focused on one thing to my own detriment,
Okay.
truthfully. Because it's not until recently, like back then, I was like, I'm gonna be an artist, so that's all I need to know. Which is not accurate, by the way.
Right.
Don't be like that. But I had that attitude for a really long time where knowing things about art and like having certain artistic skills, that's all I needed to know and I didn't need to know anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very heavily focused on doing just that until even after I graduated from college. But I think because I had that one track mindset from the beginning, I was just like, well, that's just what I'm gonna do because it's the only thing I'm interested in, really.
Right.
So even from like childhood.
Right, and I imagine that's a very double edged sword mentality, especially as you get older and get into that field a little bit more. It's like, yeah, you're getting to the field that you want, but it's not exactly the easiest field to not only get into, but to also like survive and thrive in.
Yeah, it's it's certainly been a ride,
Yeah,
and I think part of the struggle was my own stubbornness because it helps to know a variety of things, especially if you're interested in both like drawing and writing,
hmm,
which comes later, but knowing about a lot of things will also just make your visual art more interesting
that is true.
than focusing solely on like very limited knowledge base. If that makes sense.
No, no, also, yeah, it does. Like, it's one of those like sometimes you don't need to be focused on the singular thing in order to get influence to help affect by it. Having kind of a broader sense and a broader awareness of other things, you could take the influences from elsewhere and put that into your art and such. I know for like I say that and it reminds me in a sense of wrestling in a way because I'm a huge wrestling fan, like WWE style. And there's a wrestler that I know in particular whose name is Effie, and he has said before that for him, he doesn't look up to other wrestlers when it comes to inspiring how he wants to project himself and such. He takes inspiration from movies, like actors and portrayals of like how they want to project themselves and figure out how can I translate that kind of intensity or that passion into a live action, wrestling ring more than anything else.
Yeah, it definitely allows for something to be created that's more nuanced and more layered and more complex than if you focus on only the one thing. Um, so in my younger years, I focused on reading a lot of comics, which is helpful.
Yeah.
But, I also needed to read some regular books, and I wasn't doing that.
Yeah, no, that's I look at when we're all young, like no one really wants to read it. Like there that I should say no one. there are very few people that really just want to read books in the art field, almost like they want to see the art, they want to see like the beautiful figures, or they want to see like the fun action or whatnot. That's why comic books are an easy read for a lot of artists. Let's be honest with ourselves here.
Yeah, no, it's true. But I had watched a video not too long ago. This was somebody that was reviewing their the sketchbook that got them into CalArts like 10 years ago.
Okay.
And they were like, yeah, okay, there's like perspective issues and I wasn't that good at this. But even now, as somebody who's been working in the industry, I can see that this person that I was 10 years ago had like a very nuanced perspective for somebody that age. Like there were
Mm-hmm.
characters and emotions and a lot of things were going on. And they finished the video off with, in order to be a good artist, you have to have a lot of empathy and you have to read a lot of books.
That seems right more than anything else. I mean, if nothing else, like especially when it comes to the books, like you can attest to that as someone that has definitely divulged into more book aspect later on in life. You get a lot more perspective and introspection, like when you're actually reading actual books instead of just comic books.
Yeah, yeah, you do. And
Um,
research books too, not just novels.
oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. Well, same thing, I guess. Introspective and perspective when it comes to like different people, different lives, different species, and all the struggles and all stuff like that that everyone goes through in one form or fashion. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
Now I'm curious because like seeing how in retrospect it would have been interesting to have more of that literature going into being a comic book artist or being a comic artist like you were in college or whatnot. What ultimately led you to wanting to go down that path whenever you took those next steps and got to SVA and such? Like, what made you want to be a comic artist in the first place?
Um, it's funny because I don't think I read a lot of comics before I went to SVA,
Mm-hmm.
which seems kind of backwards, but I think I at least had an understanding that this is like it's a different way of storytelling than something like animation. I didn't think I could focus long enough on anything to be an animator,
Okay.
but comics uses a unique language with which to tell its stories, and I wanted to learn more about that because it's not just, you know, movement. Obviously, in comics, there's no movement, but you can kind of, make the illusion of, right?
Right.
It's um, panel placement, it's the design of the panels themselves. One thing I've been reading recently, which I kind of have a love-hate relationship, sorry, people who really like this thing, but Witch Hat Atelier has a lot of really, for manga anyway, really unique ways in which it tells its stories through the panels,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just, the panel and then stuff is happening. Because it's very European influence, sometimes the panel borders are frames, sometimes the way the characters are placed within and without the panels tells the story of like the hierarchical relationship between these characters, which manga is a lot more unique in its way of using panels than a lot of Western media, which Western media is getting there because of the manga influence.
Absolutely.
But Witch Hat Atelier um, is even more unique than a lot of manga tends to be in that regard.
Okay. Okay. No, no, trust me. Like, I get exactly what you're talking about when it comes to like you said, like panel placement and even like body placement. Like, yeah, there's a like
Hmm.
depending on what kind of comic it is, because there are motion comics these days. But like with just like a standard comic or whatnot, there may not be body movement, but the body language can imply the movement in one form or fashion, and that's something that I guess a lot of people really take for granted sometimes. I mean, there's a reason why some of the biggest comic books or the biggest graphic novels, stuff like that, they resonate with a lot of people because just based on like the story alone can carry a lot, but especially with how something is projected, how the 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 placements and all stuff like that, like it could provide you so many different images in your head, or it can provide so many different I guess translations of the story or whatnot that like you may have never even considered if you were just reading it like word for word instead of illustration by illustration.
Yeah. And I didn't even know when I had decided to go to school that that was how any of this worked. There
Okay.
was a lot less available when I was in school because I graduated in 2012.
Okay, that's fair
And
enough.
so the landscape of comics and manga was very different than it is today.
Oh yeah.
Um, and anything manga inspired was not super welcome at the time. And
Mm,
while I don't think my work inherently looks very anime-ish, it's definitely inspired by. Um, and so that was somewhat difficult. There were some teachers who were a lot more amenable to that kind of thing, but um, back then you kind of had to figure yourself out a lot
right.
more than like being educated,
No,
which
trust
is
me.
unfortunate.
No, trust me. I get that vibe as well. Look, I started going to college in 2014 myself. And like when I got there, like I said, I didn't grow up with like the art stuff like I did with the high school experience and such. So like, you know, going into the field because I was gonna go for filmmaking. The general term was called like mass media, so it was like TV, film, audio, all that stuff in this umbrella or whatnot. Um, but whenever I first got there and actually got a chance to work in the field in one form or fashion, like that's whenever it started clicking for me. I imagine for you, like you said, you didn't even realize, what the potential could be or how you could tell this kind of stuff until you actually got to college more than anything else. And I imagine, especially wanting to go into, comics and such, at least starting out, I imagine you probably had a good couple stories that you were itching to finally get a chance to tell in one form or fashion. What were some of the stories that you were intrigued on, like actually getting out there into the world once you got this stuff down?
So there was one particular character that I had made for I think it was like a short story class that I took when I was in high school.
Okay.
Um, I had kind of finished a bunch of my classes early, so I got to take like random stuff by the end, just to like fill out time. And it was about a girl who was taken to like she ended up in the hospital for one reason or another,
Mm-hmm.
and she was transformed into a doll while she was in the hospital by like a nurse or something. And while it was not good at the time, the character and like the circumstances kind of stuck with me through the years, and I had wanted to make something with her,
Mm-hmm.
which I did during my senior year.
Okay.
Um, but it didn't turn out the way I wanted. My limited artistic abilities have always kind of held me back in a lot of things.
That's fair.
But I still have the character and would still like to use her for something, but what she meant to me kind of transformed throughout the years. It's kind
Okay.
of a weird experience to have a character that you you had since you were like 16 years old and now I'm 34.
Mm-hmm.
So like what she means has taken shape to be very different than what she meant
Right.
all those years ago.
Oh no, absolutely. Like, I mean, I guess that's kind of the odd beauty of loving a character like that. Like you made it again for a class, and like you developed quite an attachment to it, and kind of seeing it more or less transform just as you grow up and you transform yourself in one form or fashion with different life experiences, wanting to see how that could potentially shape itself, I guess, in one form or fashion. I'm curious. It does make me curious. I don't know if this is the same thing, but as I was doing my research, I noticed that there was a thing that you were saying that there was a project that you're not sure if you want to make public just yet. Is that the project, or is that a different one that we should probably hint at a little later?
This is um that project is something else.
That project is something
The thing
else.
with the yeah,
Okay.
the
No,
thing
no.
with the doll, I've put out like a few pieces of artwork with her,
Okay.
but how to make her thing less cynical has kind of been a thorn in my side. It's incredibly negative and nobody needs that right now.
You know what, that is valid. But then again, in a story to where a person gets transformed into a doll more or less unwillingly, there's not really a lot of room for hope unless the hope is at the end the person is changed back into human. Like, it's really hard to be not cynical especially in a horror situation like that. Because I don't know about you, but if I was just randomly turned into a doll, I would freak out as much as a doll could freak out.
Yes and no. it kind of transformed into something that's both like horror, but things are still better than they were for her previously.
Oh, interesting.
Like it's
Interesting.
bad. There are negative things about it,
Right.
but you know, it's complicated.
I mean, I guess that's why you're. I guess that's why this is still a story that you're tinkering with and trying to figure out how exactly to tell it more than anything else. Um,
I mean, like even with the pins, right?
mm-hmm.
Most of the things that I would make are about my own feelings because um I think this is pretty common with autistic people. I am diagnosed autistic,
Okay.
is that you have a hard time understanding the emotions of other people and where they come from because your brain is just wired differently. And so most of what I've made is about my own feelings and emotions, like reacting to things that happen in my life.
Okay.
And that's what that was about too. Because when I was in high school, when I like before I made the character, but it was still like close enough in time, I had a really bad, I don't know if I would call it injury, but I had spontaneously developed sciatica,
Oh.
and it was so incredibly painful. I couldn't sit down, I couldn't touch my own knees. Like I felt like I was 90 years old.
Right.
And it's a really I can't think of the word. It's kind of an alienating feeling
Yeah.
to be like I'm in the prime of my life, the like where my body will fail me the least, and
Yeah.
it is failing me horrifically.
Absolutely. Yeah. No.
And
Anytime you're in a
yeah,
situation like that, to where again, you want to just enjoy life, but forces that beyond your control is like, no, that's not.
yeah,
It's not exactly the most wholesome of feelings.
yeah. And so I think she kind of came about as a like your body is failing you, but you're given a second chance, but in the worst way possible.
Interesting. Interesting. Huh. I mean, again, the way you word it like that, it leaves me curious, I guess, more or less, because it's a very interesting, I guess, take on a story like that. Because again, like I said, like when I heard person gets turned into a doll, I think worst case scenario. And if you could find out a way to like crack it and make it to where it's like it's bad, but it's not as bad. For it's bad for different reasons, or it's good actually in a certain way. That'd be a very interesting story to tell at the end of the day. Um, and I
I
sincerely
have
hope.
to sit down and focus on it.
No, I mean, valid. And I can also understand why that's also a little hard to do, cause given all the stuff that you've been able to dedicate a lot of time into, and especially like going back to what I was trying to get at, like a lot of the characters that you've developed a lot over the years or whatnot. As I was doing my research for you, I noticed that there was a lot of OCs that I would have never even considered having associated with you just by the pins in the merch, which again we will definitely talk about at a certain point. I promise we'll definitely get into that. I want to talk about some of these certain OCs, mainly like there's a lot of elves that I notice, and I love the designs of the elves or whatnot. What is your obsession with like elves and that kind of fantasy element?
So I think one of them's a merman,
Oh,
but
okay.
like the way that I designed the elves and the merman, like the mer people, I call them sea folk, but they're designed to almost be kind of similar, but there are differences, especially when I get to color something, which I don't always like to do.
Fair.
But I also from my dad was one of those people who's really obsessed with Lord of the Rings to this
Okay.
day.
Okay.
And so I grew up seeing like the Rankin Bass Hobbit movie, which I think
Oh.
most people think is pretty bad, but I actually really like it artistically, even though a lot of people think it's kind of ugly.
I mean, like
And
the art style of it more than anything else is absolutely incredible.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's definitely the 70s, the 60s, the 70s, and the early 80s had a really particular aesthetic for their animated films that I appreciate because nothing really looks like that anymore.
Absolutely.
Um, this is a little different, although he did direct some Lord of the Rings movies. Rank back, not, I can't say words. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
you're good.
Ralph
You're
Bakshi is one of my favorite movie directors, despite the fact that a lot of his stuff is really not that good. Um, but it's the fact that what he makes is so, we only got one chance. However it comes out is how it
Mm-hmm.
comes out.
Yeah.
Um, and he had such a unique view, like aesthetically. And again, things just don't look like that anymore.
No, trust me. And anyone that you can see definitely a lot of influence to it. In different corners of the world, especially in animation and such. But like when Ralph Bakshi was at like his height, like the art style that he put out there and the way that visually he told the stories was like second to none. The actual story itself is something that's completely up to debate depending on what the story is, because there are some that are really good and there are some that you were like, oh wow, I don't know what I just watched. But that
He's
art,
definitely a director where the pieces are better than the sum.
there you go. Honestly, yeah, and especially when the pieces are the absolutely stunning art that he puts out there and the animation and how gorgeous it could be sometimes. Yeah, that makes too much sense the way you worded it.
I think a lot in particular, and like I'm gonna get back to elves, but
Yeah, yeah,
I
absolutely.
think a lot in particular about one scene in his movie Heavy Traffic
Mm-hmm.
where it's the main character's mom reminiscing about her life, but like, I used to be this and now I'm miserable and my husband hates me and everything is the worst. And it's photographs of like a young woman behind her that's supposed to be her.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, what happened?" And it slapped me in the face. It's just like, gosh, that's awful, but also entirely understandable.
Yeah. Again, going back to kind of what you were talking about in a way with how kind of the, life experiences kind of drove you a different, gave you a going back to sciatica that you were talking about, I guess more or less, kind of one of those like you could think like I was in my prime or whatever, like I could have had like the best time possible, but again, life, things outside of your control was like again, haha, no.
Yeah, I definitely learned that for no reason whatsoever, your body can fail you at any moment.
Yeah, no, it absolutely can, and why does the body have to be stupid like that? I will never. I have too many questions
And
that they're outside of my control.
yeah, and I mean, that has definitely kind of, at least now, um, made me just focus as much as I can because I'm not very good at focusing on anything.
Okay.
But my brain has been like, you got to make something because you don't know what your body's gonna do,
Oh, absolutely.
especially as I get older, you know. Because like I've had other health issues, like in 2020 when the pandemic first started, I damaged my hip somehow and I couldn't walk for
Oh,
like a year.
oh my
Like
goodness.
I could walk, but like barely.
Right.
And again, it's just like I don't know what I did for my hip to do that. It was incredibly painful the entire time.
I would say
And
honestly, I vaguely relate to that. Like at least as of late, it's not the same pain. I haven't broken anything, but like for the past 2 weeks, I've been dealing with like a pinched nerve in my lower back and my left hip or whatnot. And like again, I can move and stuff like that. So again, vaguely, and like it's not like I did anything to aggravate it or anything along the lines of that. My body was just like, haha, no. So
yeah, sometimes your body just says no,
yeah.
and I'm just like, oh, I gotta make something before my body just gives up on me entirely.
Mm-hmm.
But as for the elf stuff, when I was in college, like I doodled a character on a piece of paper, and he was like a grumpy little elf dude sitting on a mushroom, and he was being angry. And even though it was just a crappy doodle and I wasn't gonna do anything with it, I ended up keeping the character. Like I still use him. He's one of those elves, but his story has like changed over the years
Okay.
as I get older. Because initially it was like a world hopping story where uh one elf is trying to find his brother who like left their village a long time ago
Okay.
because their people are cursed to never experience sadness. And he was like, I don't know, there's something wrong about this. I'm gonna leave. And while that has kind of kept similar, it's become about a lot of other things.
Right. No, I can imagine
So
kind of like you were kind of like what we were illustrating with the doll thing or whatnot. Like what started off as probably a simple concept that you could probably execute. I imagine the more you grew with these characters and the more you kind of fleshed them out, the more complex the story was at the end of the day that you want to tell.
yeah, it kind of maybe I overblew it a little bit. Um, which does happen. Please, other people do not fall into the same mistakes that I'm making currently.
Right, right.
Uh, but I'm too far in to stop myself, so oops.
In the words of a legendary band, I am in too deep and I'm trying to sleep.
Yeah.
That being said, though, like with what you have been able to put out there with some of these OCs, especially with like the elves and stuff like that, I love your art style that you put out there, just in general, but especially with like the elves one or whatnot, or with the fantasy esque characters that you have, like Rena, Coral, Brisket, which the name has me like set back. Brisket, interesting, but also the character looks absolutely stunning. So like, name yourself whatever you want. I'm a root for Brisket no matter what.
Yeah. So I'm this is gonna sound so mean. I am so sorry.
Okay.
I get really picky about fantasy things. I think for a long time I thought I just didn't like fantasy media, which I know isn't true because I grew up playing Final Fantasy games and Dragon Quest and stuff.
Yep.
So obviously there's a way for me to like it, but I think I get very particular. Like, okay, I've played D&D a few times,
Mm-hmm.
but I think what I struggle with is the D&Dification of modern fantasy is where I kind of draw the line of like not really being into it.
Okay.
And it's that on top of there's a webcomic artist and like their art is like their work is perfectly fine. This isn't about like what they produce, but they in one of their videos were talking about how when they're reading something, they only like characters and they don't really care about the worlds that the character is in. And my mind went, that's ridiculous. The world informs the character.
Exactly.
And so I wanted to make something that was both world and character focused. And so it grew from and it was originally going to be something that was more medieval, so like more typical fantasy. And then the more I poked away at it, I was like, nah, it's got to be Roman. It's got to be Byzantine. It's got to be more like that. And so I've been doing research on all of those things and the artistic traditions of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with still some like medieval stuff because I wanted to build a world that felt fleshed out, and that means taking things from lots of different places.
Right.
And so right now, because one of the characters is a baker, and I was like, I don't know anything about baking. So not only am I learning about baking, I'm learning about the history of bread.
Okay.
Because understanding the history of where one of the most common sources of food comes from, because its history is actually kind of surprising to me. I think because I've always lived in a city, there are certain things that just don't come naturally to me.
Right.
But like learning about how different cultures viewed grain, um, and stuff like that, and like how it transformed their world helps me inform this character's understanding of their own profession.
That is honestly really. It's incredible to hear that you have that much like like dedication to your art, that you want to make sure that you understand the elements before you even like write anything about it in one form or fashion. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I agree with you 100% whenever you said that like the world informs the character. So like hearing that one artist saying that like I only care about the characters, that's ridiculous. If you only care about the characters, then that world is boring, and the person that made that world needs to invest more in that world. But like for you to go out of your way to like invest more into, like I said, just even baking and the history of bread, which I can only imagine like how nichely intriguing that has to be. Because I mean, it's you think base level, oh yeah, it's just bread, but like, how did they even come up with that idea in the first place? How did they even think that was even possible? You know, there's so much elements behind it that people could stop and think about if they, when it comes to bread.
So, I mean, I don't want to dwell too much on it. I don't know how much people are going to care about bread stuff, but like the book that I ended up getting, I didn't realize this when I bought it. It was published in like 1944
Oh
because
wow.
there's just not a lot of very there's not a lot of books about this very specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I had never considered, for example, like the part I just read, because it's one of those things where I'll read a couple pages and then I have to think about it. Because so much of this is just very new to me. I'm just reading on Greeks and bread. I had no idea that Greece, for a very long time, didn't really give a crap about agriculture. Like you would think everywhere would because that's how you eat.
Right.
But um, they had to essentially deify the concept of agriculture in order to get people to care about it.
Really? They had to
And
literally
so,
make gods in order for people to care about agriculture.
yeah, well, because breeding cattle was fine because that's seen as like that's a manly job,
Right.
but like their land is not very conducive to agriculture. It's like kind of sandy. Their dirt is not good for growing stuff. So I understand why that would happen, but essentially they had to turn growing wheat into religious work in
Wow.
order for it not to be seen as like a lowly part of society.
You learn something every day. Um, does that mean that for today's standards we need to make like a new god of art in order for people to care more about art and invest into it more?
Apparently that's just how they treated stuff because it was also like how do I explain this? Everything, like they viewed everything as having a soul. So
Okay.
um even making wine, right? You're committing murder on the grapes in order to make the wine.
Right.
And so in order to pay like repentance for killing the grape, you make a god of the grape and the wine. So Bacchus, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's they did the same for wheat and for bread making and stuff like that. And so doing all of these things becomes a religious service now in service of society and in service of these gods. And yeah, I guess like the concept of art having a soul wouldn't be too foreign,
Yeah.
although it's
Exactly.
not a living thing. But like that's how
Depending on
you
what
get
the
people to care about it.
depending on what the art is, there's definitely a lot of soul and definitely a lot of living. There could be living parts. There's the like stage is considered like art, or like acting is considered art in one
Yeah,
form or fashion. So I mean, like, all we just need is to come up with a name and a cool design, and boom, we can get people to care more about art. Put your put suggestions for names for a new god of art in the description below.
come on, Greece. You're the ones who are good at this. Figure it
Come
out.
on, Greece. I guess is this kind of level of like research that you're doing with this kind of stuff, is this more or less part of the process for you when you have like an idea that you want to make into whether like a comic series or even just like, merch stuff or whatnot? Like what's like I'm how much of this is part of the process? And just stepping back in general, what is the process like for you when you want to like develop something that you could potentially put out there in the world?
I think for merch stuff, most of it has been this is kind of silly. I'm supposed to wear glasses and I don't.
Oh wow.
And so a lot of the merch, especially a lot earlier in my pin making, a lot of what I sold were like items with body parts.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lamp with eyeballs.
Right.
And that was just from I don't wear my glasses and I don't see things very good. What do
Mm-hmm.
I see when I can't see correctly?
Oh, that's actually pretty. That's honestly that's genius. Like it's a simple concept, and I'm surprised more people haven't taken that. Like, let me get my sketch pad. We can get things going. No, I'm joking.
So there's a word for it. It's called pareidolia when you
Okay.
see like human features in things that are not human. So the headlights of a car looking like eyes.
Yes. No.
Um, and for a while, I was focused mostly on that.
Okay.
And when I started doing the body horror stuff, that was very like, this is how I feel about things. I don't know how to express myself in words. This lady with her ribcage exposed is definitely what I'm feeling. I don't know what feeling that is, but it's
Oh yeah.
this.
I mean, honestly, like no matter what the feeling is, like especially the body horror stuff, like I'm not lying when I say that's probably some of the most stunning art that I've ever seen out there, just in general. Like the way you really like put in so much detail to it on top of such a stunning art style, which for me, I don't know if anyone else has ever described this, but for me, looking at your art and your art style, it gives me vibes of Edgar Allan Poe if he had wrote Alice in Wonderland. Like that's the vibe I get from your art style, if that makes sense.
Oh, thank you. That's a really big compliment,
Oh,
actually.
oh, absolutely.
I have kind of always been drawn to things like that. I'm not even really sure why. Maybe it's because my dad made me play Doom when I was like 5 years old.
Oh,
But
yeah, that makes sense.
um, I think part of it is just I've never been very good with words, and
Okay.
so a decapitated lady is like this is what I'm feeling. Can't put it into words. Whatever this is it. And I just kind of did it over and over and over again.
I mean, I will say the way you've found the different ways you've been able to portray a decapitated woman in one form or fashion, whether it be, top up, or whether it be face splitting, or it's just stuff crumbling or mending or oozing out, like all the different ways you've been able to do it, I cannot get enough of it. Like the way you're able to translate that body horror, like even though it's hard to do it in words, the way you're able to do it in merch and in art style or whatnot, like it speaks volumes more than anything else.
Oh, thank you.
I was
I think part of being a good artist is being a good communicator, which I've never been, so I appreciate that.
Well, I imagine part of that also leads into not just like the body horror, but in a different kind of way, kind of mental horror, or at least like mental illness. There was something that I noticed as I was doing my research that apparently at one point you made a illustrations of, I guess, what for you was your kind of translation of mental illness or whatnot.
Yeah, I did that. What was that? 2017, 2018? I don't
Okay.
remember, but I did have when I was first getting back into doing work like that, because for a long time I was really depressed and I didn't make anything.
Okay.
And the only way I could make myself do anything was to make these really simplistic comics about my cats. So I would roll out of bed and do that for 10 minutes and then roll back into bed, and I could feel like I accomplished something. That book was one of the first forays back into trying to make something that was more complete than
Mm-hmm.
like a stick figure version of a cat. And so I did illustrations of my own personal issues because as much as people feel like they can relate when you have something and they don't, there is something that's deeply unexplainable when you have an issue that other people don't
Right.
have experience with. And I was trying to put it to paper. I think I had also seen that there was a popular artist or popular YouTuber that did something similar, and I was unhappy with his illustrations
Fair enough.
because I think they felt too one, they all felt too samey, and I'm not knocking his work, like get your bag, whatever,
Right.
but they felt too samey and I didn't relate to them.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, like you kind of illustrate,
So
I'll say, like you kind of illustrated earlier, for you, it's a lot harder to kind of describe the feelings and emotions and that kind of stuff. And so I imagine like seeing this other artist's work, it just didn't hit the same, or it didn't like feel the same kind of way as you had felt struggling with that kind of stuff.
yeah, and I think artists kind of develop a very similar language for discussing the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
which there's an obvious reason why that happens. I'm not gonna say I'm like mad about it or anything,
Right.
but I felt like there were other ways to think about these particular things that weren't exactly the typical ways of describing them. So I wanted to do that, and I was also very into J fashion at the time, so a lot of the illustrations leaned more into J fashion stuff also.
No, I can certainly tell like those illustrations. I'll have a couple like being shown as we're talking about this in the video version of the podcast, but like they look absolutely stunning. Like I and honestly like I could see how someone could look at that and maybe not fully understand the emotion, but at least sympathize a little better with the emotion, given how you were able to project it more than anything else. Like I'll be blunt. Like for me, the one I was easily able to at least associate with was the one with the fried egg instead of a head being like cracked open or whatnot.
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh yeah, I like that one.
no, it's a really good one more than anything else. But also like yeah, I can kind of understand kind of that feeling of like wanting to be there, but also like kind of mentally being like fried, like kind of almost disassociated in a way. At least that's how I.
Then you have a migraine.
No, that's migraine. Okay. You see,
although your interpretation's not wrong.
It's one of those like I get like same thing, but like also two different experiences in a way. Yeah, or different experiences, but like same mentality in a way. That's the beauty of art. We can always interpret weird stuff like that. So it does also leave me wondering, like you're doing this also incredible kind of art. When did you also decide to make like? When did you also decide to make like pins and merch and stuff like that, like a thing as part of your repertoire? Like obviously like just drawing this kind of stuff and like drawing these characters is one thing, but what made you ultimately decide you're like, hey, this would look incredible as something that people could wear?
I think around, it was 2016 or 2017, one of my friends who is, I think, a lot more of a go-getter than I've ever been, was like, so when are you opening your online store? And I was like, I'm not. And she kind of was aggressive in being like, you should make more stuff. And I didn't know fully what to make, but I think I went with pins because around that time, I think a lot more people were making them.
Right.
And so it felt like, because previous to that, it was harder to find a manufacturer. Like,
oh yeah.
Artist Alley stuff and being able to make your own merchandise has changed radically in the last decade or so.
It's definitely become a lot more. It's definitely become a lot more commercialized, so that it's easier for people to get on board with it.
The more people make the same thing, the easier it is to make it,
exactly.
like overall, because the resources become available. And so when I first started doing conventions back before, like right after I graduated from college, these sorts of things were not really easy to get a hold of.
Right.
And so, I stuck with stickers and whatever. And around, 2016, 2017, pins were just a lot more easy to be able to make. And I felt like I could figure out how to make a design for that work because you have to design pins in a particular way, especially back then. Nowadays, there's less limitations.
Mm-hmm.
But back then it really had to be, okay, all of the lines have to touch for any particular color or else there's going to be issues, and pieces can't be too small, pieces can't be too big. And I felt like I could wrap my head around that a lot easier than I could for other things.
Right.
And so I designed, I designed for a Kickstarter campaign. I think I called it Strange Objects.
Oh, okay.
And they were all just objects you would find around your house, except there's a human component, like a chair with human legs and a lamp with eyeballs, and stuff like that.
Kind of like the element that you talked about earlier of like if you take your glasses off, kind of what you see.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt like, okay, I could make a set of that, and I think I could figure it out in a way that's cohesive enough that people might be interested. And I did a Kickstarter campaign, and it was successful enough.
Nice.
And so I just kept doing it. Because I felt like I had gotten into a pretty good stride of like, I know how to design for this. And so I could knock out designs really quickly. And the more I just looked around the world around me, the more ideas I had.
I mean, especially with the influence you seem to take from the world around you in one form or fashion, and how you've been able to translate it in one form or fashion. Like we talked about the body horror stuff alone, but like there's also different elements. Like for example, with this pin, like clowns and patterns and all that kind of stuff. Like being able to translate that, or another thing that I can't believe I haven't brought up to this point, kind of the eldritch stuff that you're into, like angels and all that kind of aspect of it. I have to ask, what is it about angels, more specifically kind of the biblically accurate angels, that creatively inspires you?
I think it started off kind of as a bit of a joke for me.
Mm-hmm.
When you're autistic, right, the one thing people like to point out is that you don't look people in the eye. And so it was, let me put eyes on everything, and then nobody can ever say that.
Honestly, that is extremely valid. That's why I'm so glad that whenever I did see your shop at MomoCon or whatnot, I was more than happy to buy the biblically accurate socks more than anything else.
Yes. And I think I just like eyes as a graphic. When
Mm-hmm.
I was in college and I was doing my thesis, the year that I did my thesis, our theme was fairy tales.
Okay.
And I had opted to do, what if the little match girl was in the future and the girl was a robot instead of a human child?
Okay.
And one thing my teacher kept kind of getting on about me for was like the emotions are just like not there. And so I had to do research into artists who are really good at expressing emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a heavy focus on the eyes and the eyebrows.
Okay.
That's where the emotion comes from. And then I think after that I was just like eyes are everything, eyes are everything, must understand them, put them on everything.
Yeah, eyes are
And
every.
so it became to me like a very uh like emotional and important thing to look at and examine when I'm looking at a piece of work.
No, absolutely. Though I do feel bad for especially my guests or my the people that watch this episode. I feel bad for those that have was it trypophobia or whatnot, the fear of like holes or whatever it is.
Yeah,
So
sorry about that.
yeah, sorry, but I'm gonna make sure to put like a disclaimer at the beginning of the episode so that people are aware of that stuff. Like you're better off just listening to this episode rather than watching it if that's something that you have a legit phobia of. I apologize for people ahead of time, but also I apologize right now that we're talking about this stuff. Um, but I mean, regardless, like the way you've been able to illustrate that, and like literally the way you've been able to put it on there. Again, the socks that I have, berets, cardigans, having little patches and stuff like that. Like it's a simple design, but I love the way you've been able to use it and apply it to so many different things. The cardigan that you have up on your Etsy shop right now alone or whatnot, if I had the money for it, I would get one immediately because I love that design, especially with like the placement of the eyes or whatnot. Like I love that cardigan so much. Um,
Oh, thank you. That
I,
was a collaboration with a friend of mine. Um, it is mostly my design, but they made it more palatable.
yeah, they made it to where it's I guess fashionable. I guess a little bit more. Well, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
was it?
Or like an easier to produce item because I had
There you
never
go.
produced anything like that before. So my initial design was like, I don't know that that's possible.
And now we made it more than possible, more than anything else. But the
Yeah.
eyes do lead me to something else or whatnot. And I kind of hinted at this a little bit earlier, but again, as I was noticing all the different eye stuff, there was a patch in particular that you had that was an eyeball with like a target for the eye, I guess I get, or like the ring, the iris or whatnot had like rings going outward of it. And again, you said in that post that is it weird for me to make merch for a project that I may not ever make public? Now, I'm curious. I want to potentially give you the opportunity right now to make it somewhat public, or at least get your ideas out there to potentially manifest it one day. What is this project? Because if the merch for it simply looks like that, I'm intrigued to know what the idea is behind it.
So that actually has to do with the elves and stuff.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, so the story with that and with the the sea folk and whatever is essentially the relationship between land, sea, and sky is out of balance, and the the eye with the spirals is an indication that something has gone horribly wrong
Okay.
and somebody has become like cursed, and it's due to like negative spiritual influences, I guess is a way to put it.
Okay.
Uh, and so it's like people and animals becoming violent and cruel when they weren't supposed to be, like acting out of accordance with themselves. And that's like what their eyes turn into, at least in one instance, because like the eye stuff continues into that project.
Right.
I haven't made a lot of posts about it, but the humans in that setting are how do I explain it? Their creator has a plethora of wings.
Okay.
And so they find birds to be very important, right?
Okay.
Because birds have wings, birds can fly. Humans in that setting are the only people that have a desire to reach the sky.
Okay.
And so um it's like they're also not very spiritually inclined, and so when they mess with things that they're not good with, that's what
Hmm.
happens.
Yep.
Like weird deformities, eyeballs everywhere, like that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so it's like fantasy, but it's also horror.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on in that.
I mean, even then, like, just that little bit of a description alone, like, the fact of basically, like, the humans in this world and, like, the different balances of, like, the three worlds and how the humans are basically the ones that are disrupting it, whether they realize it or not, because they simply want to touch the sky, more or less. And, like, what potential unknown eldritch horrors that could come from that. At the end of the day, I would love to see how you would be able to translate this, like, from mind to comic or concept in one form or fashion.
So I'm trying. It's a hard, it's difficult
Oh
because
yeah.
I'm very hypercritical of my own work. So I did some of it and then I was like, this is garbage. I need to do it again. But
Hmm.
I do have help. Somebody who apparently you followed them on Blue Sky recently, Brian Yaksha.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so that is the person whose house I work out of.
Oh really?
Um, and they do a lot of like editing, like writing editing, so I could just throw stuff at them and be like, fix it and make it better for me. I'm not much of a writer, so
Okay.
I can have all of the information in my head and like put it on paper, but I'm not the person to write natural dialogue.
Right.
So I'm fortunate that I can like hand it off to them and they can make it better.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah. And I'm sorry, I pulled up my phone real quick because I wanted to look up. Right, yeah, no, I actually followed them because of you because I saw their commissions pages. I'm gonna have like the commission stuff like right here or whatnot. I love kind of the old school like fantasy element that their art portrays, like for their commissions and stuff like that. Like the classic, almost like medieval esque art style. So I can see why having an artist like that helping you out, like I can see how he can help make that vision, help bring that truly to life, like you've been struggling to do for a while now.
Yeah, it helps too. They're just like really knowledgeable about history and cultures and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So at the beginning, when I first started working on this, when it was more of a medieval situation, I would just go to them and be like, so like, how does knighthood work? Which could I just go to Google and look that up? Sure, but they've already gotten all the information and can put it into context for me.
Yeah.
So
If not,
um, it,
if nothing else, the thing with Google is it has all the different people that have listed it in a million different ways. With someone like them who have looked up this stuff and has definitely taken the time to comprehend it, they can not only give you that information but give it to you in a way to where it's easy for you to understand.
yeah, and it's already been filtered to the point of this is what you need to know instead of all this extra stuff.
Right.
Because that's the issue I have when I do my own research is I realize everything's connected, and then it's like, okay, I read a book about bread, so then I got books about how to make bread the ancient way, and then I got books on Roman food traditions, and then I got books on Roman agriculture
Yep. Yep.
because I can't just have the one thing. It's got to be everything, and I don't know where to stop. So it's a lot easier to have one person just disseminate information to me instead of let me read 10 books before I write this.
Right, right. I mean, honestly, it's so easy, especially these days, to go down a rabbit hole like that. Like, because again, like you're thinking you're gonna talk about one thing, and then all of a sudden you're trying to figure out like how exactly like the ancient government of Greece was the one that determined whether or not the Romans could be able to plant their crops in March or whatnot. Like some weird obscure knowledge like that, you know?
And knowing those things does help. So I'm going to
Oh
read
yeah.
books anyway.
No, of
But
course. Trust me, I'm not telling you to not read
but
books. That's the last thing I'm
no,
gonna
of,
do.
of course. It's just it's really easy, and I think most cartoonists will tell you this. It's really easy to kind of get lost in the sauce and then overburden yourself with information to the point where you can't make the thing that you want to make,
Oh yeah.
which I'm dealing with that right now. It's not pleasant. Don't be like me.
Right. Well, I mean, like it's very easy to see how you can get lost in the sauce. Just seeing how you've been able to kind of less like present yourself throughout the years with all the different kind of art styles and all the different ways you've kind of immersed yourself in art in one form or fashion. Again, whether it be like we talked about learning about the history of bread to like, you know, dedicating yourself to like different styles of art to get like a certain piece, like the mosaic stuff, which side note, I loved your mosaic fish that you had as like a print recently or whatnot, or that you did the art for.
Oh, thank you.
I love that mosaic stuff more than anything else. Like I can also see how that's an influence for, like, for example, you know, going back to like how you like to immerse yourself, like seeing how, from what I can read, I can understand why going to like trips to Italy or whatnot and absorbing the culture there can go back and kind of influence the art that you put forward as well.
Oh yeah, my on my mom's side we're Italian, and my
Mm-hmm.
mother has always been the type of like, we need to go, you need to go see where you come from.
Right.
And I didn't think that that was a real thing because I'm American. What am I
Right.
going to have in common with people in Italy? It's an entirely different life. And while that's true, there are just certain mannerisms that apparently just cross the generational divide. Like, apologies if this gets you in trouble. I've never been to a country before where it just felt like the entire population had ADHD
Oh
and couldn't
wow.
focus on anything. And it's like, mood. That's where it comes from. It's that.
I
I'm
mean,
not lazy. I'm just Italian.
someone needs to put that on like a banner or a shirt.
It's like, no, you don't understand. When you go there, it's really common for stores to just have the phone number of the person who owns it because they didn't feel like going to work that day. And it's
Oh
like, if
wow.
you want to buy something, call me, but I'm not coming in otherwise.
Okay. Okay. No, honestly, hey, especially with a place like that to where the vibe can be kind of that laid back or whatnot, I get that. I understand
Yeah.
that. Um, and like, look, I've had that kind of same mentality with like my own culture in a way. You see, on my mom's side, my grandparents were Polish.
Hmm.
And I've wanted so badly to go to Poland at some point because I want to absorb that culture in one form or fashion. I want to see, like, again, where my family more or less came from at the end of the day. It's something that I've always dreamed of doing, just never had the opportunity to do so up to this point. So I
You
can.
should do it if it's possible.
Oh no,
Things are
absolutely.
really complicated in America right now.
Trust me. And also, my finances really suck because student loans are kicking my tail end.
Things are really financially complicated in America right now.
Exactly, exactly. But if I ever do get the opportunity, like that's a dream thing that I want to do. I've always wanted to just go to Poland just to experience that culture. I've always wanted to just go to Europe point blank. Like
Yeah.
the most I've ever gone international wise is like to the Caribbeans for like a cruise that my mom and her roommate paid for like years ago. You know, like Caribbeans and Puerto Rico. That's about it. Like I want to like truly go international and like experience different cultures and stuff like that. So, uh,
It's it is like, I mean, growing up an Italian American, obviously it's not the same as growing up Italy and in Italy and being Italian, but
right.
there is uh it's not a kinship because some people they, I don't know, they land wherever it is that their family's from and they're just like, I feel so tied to this area. And it's like, for me it wasn't that. But it was interesting to just see how things are differently in a place that's unfamiliar to me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't speak the language very well. I speak a little bit.
Right.
Um, and so communication was difficult, but it was nice that people were kind of willing to take me where I was at and didn't try to like treat me like I was an idiot.
Right. Right.
So that was fun.
It's
But also just, oh, sorry.
no, I was just gonna say like it's nice to know that there are people that actually like genuinely care for your well being instead of trying to scam you out of something.
Yeah. Um, but also it's just a unique experience to be in somewhere that's so old.
Yeah.
Because being in the United States, right? Our country's like a few hundred years old,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't even have that many things from back then that are still just like standing out where you could see them. But we we had a guide who spoke really good English, and she used to be an archaeologist, so she was especially
Oh.
knowledgeable about like historical stuff. And so we would just turn a corner, and she would be like, "These buildings have been here since the Renaissance," and
Wow.
it's like, just the concept that something so ancient is still standing. And in Rome, we went to this one square area, and she pointed up at a statue of a cat, and she's like, "That cat was not originally here. We don't necessarily know where it's from, but that cat is older than anything else here." Like
Wow.
it's like a statue, you know? And so like that statue of a cat is like 1,000 years old or something crazy like that, and it's just there.
It's just there.
We go into a random church. Do you want to look at some Caravaggio paintings?
Yeah.
And it's just ancient stuff all over the place. And it's like, wow, there's just, I mean, you could say what you want about Rome. Like, there's a lot of pickpockets there or whatever. I didn't really have an issue with that because I know how to travel. I'm from New York.
Yep.
Don't be stupid. Is
Yep.
the only
Yep.
thing, right? Don't just have your stuff laying like out all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that wasn't crazy to me or anything. But I was just amazed at being able to be around something where it's like for hundreds of thousands of years, people have been standing in this very spot. And while things, change, obviously aesthetics change, we've always just been people doing the same stuff.
True. Absolutely.
And to just see that like in an actual area, to see the things I've seen in my art history textbooks like in person, it's very humbling that you are just this tiny little speck in this grand history of humanity, right?
Absolutely. But also like to think that like stuff like that has lasted like throughout the years at this point, and like you said, like stuff that is thousands of years old are still able to be there to where it's not just like something that you see in the textbook. You can physically still see it. It makes this whole entire weird experience that is life kind of a little bit more, I guess, comforting in a way, knowing that some of the stuff, some of the things that we could appreciate for Lord knows how long, it's actually there. It's a reality. It's not just something made up out of thin air, like to give us false hope or anything like that.
I
So,
think too, in our modern day where art is very consumable, but also trends and attention go way too fast.
yes.
You're expected to produce so quickly and so much. Like that's not how we were meant to make things. These things lasted, and they took years to make in some instances. You don't make a marble statue in 10 days.
Right. No, absolutely.
And I think sometimes, I know I personally get lost with this. I imagine other people would too, where your mentality is always like, well, I got to produce more, like I got to make more stuff, I got to do the grind or whatever. And it's like art wasn't meant to be consumed like that.
No, it
It
wasn't.
wasn't meant to be made like that either. How are you supposed to take pride in what you're making if you have to make it like in a day?
Exactly. No, it's one of those like, trust me, especially with the whole entire topic of AI art and all that, bullshit. At the end of the day, like, no, art was not supposed to be made like that. Art was supposed to be something that people take the time to express something in one form or fashion, and other people look at and get their own kind of sense of translation of that expression in one form or fashion. I mean, that's something I've certainly noticed with you when it comes to how you've been able to present yourself and the stuff that you put out there. Like, for you, again, this was the way, like you had mentioned earlier, this was a way for you to be able to express yourself that was hard to do otherwise. And the way that we're able to, consume it and kind of, interpret that in one form or fashion. It's something that helps makes this weird experience of life a little bit better because we can understand each other a little bit better through this art form rather than here's a piece, here's a piece, here's a piece, it's not supposed to be like that.
It's not. Um, and yeah, I think because I haven't been able to make any pins this year. Part of it's like the tariff stuff. So,
Yeah, yeah.
our own governmental issues are certainly hindering production of anything, but it also just became kind of weird. Like I pulled myself back and was like, it feels odd to me that I'm commercializing my own negative mental health,
Yeah.
which I it's difficult because, well, I need to survive and make money.
Obviously,
And
yeah.
that's what people like from me, but it does also have its own like weird morality issues. Uh, I don't know if other people care about that sort of thing, but I started to develop an issue with it. And part of me is like, people seem to get some level of comfort, so it's not bad to make it. But I also felt like I should be doing something else aside from that too.
Right, right. It's one of those like it's one thing if the art that you make that is is a negative mindset or whatnot helps another person kind of cope and understand something that they may also be going through. But especially for you, there's only so much of that you can do before you can only burn the candle. You can't burn the candle at both ends of making that negative art and selling that negative art. Otherwise, where are you gonna go
Yeah.
from there?
And I had also started to develop like, I went to school to be a comic book artist. Why am I only making pins?
Yeah,
Which
that's
is why I started the fantasy project again in the first place. Because I had those characters for a really long time.
yeah.
But what stopped me was I'm not very good at drawing men. And
Mm,
so it was very difficult to actually have to sit down and learn how to do that. Because so much of my work was focused more on like people with more feminine characteristics. They
right.
weren't all inherently women or anything, but um I had actually found the first drawing I made this year of the elf character, and he looks like an entirely different person, and also he looks 15 years old instead of 27. So it's been like a weird journey
hmm
this year trying to figure out like a comic appropriate art style,
Okay.
which I think for the most part other people should not focus on art style so much, but this is just the focus that I have.
No, honestly, that's valid. I'm glad to hear that. Like you've been taking the time to develop that and to make that into the style that you can look at. You can be proud of at the end of the day. To present out there to the world to tell that story that you've been itching to tell for Lord knows how long. Um, it it does lead me to quickly ask. It's kind of weird because you just talked about how you're stepping away from like the pins and stuff like that. But I'm at least curious. Out of the pins or the merch that you have made, do you at least have like a personal favorite one that you've been able to put out there?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I have mine hanging on banners. I have to look at the banners to see because I don't remember what I I've made like so many pins. I don't even remember all of them at this point.
That's valid.
Um, Honestly, I think it might actually be a more recent one where it's a set and it's a girl that's rotting and her hand is a separate pin and it's holding a lantern that dangles. I think that might be my
Oh.
favorite one.
Yeah, I think I mean, obviously for the video version, I have it posted up right here so that people can see it or whatnot. I remember seeing that one. That was very well designed, more than anything else. Like especially like the rotting hand aspect of it or whatnot. Like that was wonderfully done. I'll say for me, speaking of like the rotting aspect of it. In fact, I have the pin up here or whatnot. It's one of the half lady ones. I think it's called ribbons or whatnot. With like
Yeah.
yep, that one's really well done. I mean, obviously, I have an affinity for the biblically accurate socks. I mean, they're comfortable more than anything else. Um, but like, yeah, no, like I can easily see how in a design like that, I can only imagine the amount of time it took to actually make that look right at the end of the day. Um, but
Honestly, part of what I liked about pin making is that it was very easy for me to just draw the thing and send it to the manufacturer and be like, "You figure this out."
you know what?
I
I
think that's one of my issues is I don't like I like focusing on certain aspects of creating. I really like inking. I
mm,
think people could tell that I like inking.
mm-hmm.
Uh, but anything beyond just designing the thing, I don't want to figure out math. I'm not good at math.
Okay,
The people on the other end are a lot better at the math stuff, which is why I could just be like, have at it.
absolutely. I can understand that. Um, but even then, like thinking about like the fact that you're able to have something like that and have something tangible that people honestly could love and appreciate or whatnot, and seeing the wealth of people that do love and appreciate your stuff in the first place, that's like, I know you kind of illustrated that with kind of how weird it was for people to like love and appreciate the art that was like negatively, that showed like some of the negative feelings that you had about yourself. What is it weird to know that that you have this like nice little like loyal group of people that just love the art that you put out there no matter what?
I mean, it is very nice. I have people that will come up to me at most conventions that I'm at, and it's the same person, which,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm glad you have enough money to do that. Um, and they'll be like, "Here's my bag of like 100 pins," and it's crazy to me that I even like, wow, one person bought all of that. Uh, but it's also, man, I don't even know that I know how to talk about it.
Okay.
I really appreciate people's support of my work,
Mm-hmm.
but I also feel like I'm at a point where I do not know what else to make for them.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of guilt where it's just like I'm kind of tapped on that front. I think I've made enough negative emotions. I don't know how to describe this anymore. I'm very sorry.
Well, I mean, at this point, maybe not the negative emotions, but especially if you go forth with this, the fantasy horror concept that we've been talking about here and there, whatnot, like, who knows how many of those same people are going to just love and appreciate what you put out there when it comes to that. Consider the fact that this is a story that's very personal to you, first and foremost. Kind of like how the negative art stuff was something that, for you, was a way for you to kind of, translate and talk about something that was hard to talk about in the first place.
Yeah, I do hope that people like it, but I realize the only events I ever go to for fun, like to not sell at, are local comics events.
Right.
And it made me realize that comics are a really hard sell.
They can be.
So I would look at something, I would open a book, I would see one thing I didn't like and be like, nope, no thanks. Like visually, usually, not even anything to do with writing because I can't sit there and read it. Uh, and I realized like, wow, getting people to buy full-on books is really hard.
It
And
can't be.
so I'm like, I'm also, because I have been actually reading more recently made things. I used to be somebody who stuck with like more old school kind of stuff. Um, I can see how storytelling has radically changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my views on how I like comics to function for the most part is still pretty old school. And so I am concerned that people would be like, this is too slow. Why is action not happening? Um, because like, look, man, I'm as big of a fan of stuff like Don to Don as anybody else.
Right.
But like, my comic ain't gonna be that. It's not
No.
gonna be it's not gonna be solo leveling. It's not. It's like I come from a time because I'm ancient now where I was reading Lord of the Rings for the first time because I had never read that before, despite the fact that my father is like the biggest fan of Lord
Right.
of the Rings. And I'm like, he really is describing like every flower in this field. This is my kind of thing. And I think people get really attached to that with Tolkien, but don't like when anybody else does that. So I don't know how they're going to respond to what I make, but we'll see.
I mean, I'll let you know right now. I'm gonna be one of the first people that's gonna like dive in head first into this comic whenever you do get a chance to get it out there in the world. More than anything else, like the way you've described it already, I'm interested to see like how the dynamics would actually play out and how the elves are gonna be important, how the humans just fuck everything up. Like I'm genuinely curious on how the dynamics are gonna work out, no matter how fast or how slow of a burn it's gonna be to get to that point.
I am going to be honest, it is a very like it is a very character-centric story, but
Mm-hmm.
again, the world is also very important. So
Oh yeah.
it's really about two people who are separated from their people and culture learning to deal with a world that doesn't really want them there.
Okay. Okay.
And
Well,
all that other stuff comes into it because it informs like who they are as people and like
yeah.
the wider picture of what's going on societally. But it really is just like learning like how you accidentally found the one person in the world who understands you.
Honestly, that little additional description of it, again, if I like, you already have me sold, Lulu. All right, I'm already gonna be reading this thing. All right, but you keep selling me more and more and more. Like, I get it. I want to. I like it. Just makes me intrigued more than anything else to see how this does play out. At the end of the day, so no matter how long it takes, just know that again, whenever you do get a chance to finally unleash it onto the world, I am going to be one of the first people to be like, I will take it. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, how about to help you out with you getting to your best? What if what if we go a little bit above and beyond for this next question? And Lulu, I give you more or less the dream scenario, if I may. Let's say I am Big Shot Mr. Moneybags. I come up to you and I'm like, look, Lulu, we see the incredible stuff that you've been able to push out there. Like we've seen the stunning art and like the really personal pieces, and we hear that there's some interesting stuff coming in the pipeline, and we think that there's an audience for it, and we think that you have the potential to really get out there more than anything else. You just need a little extra platform, a little extra push to get you to that point. We have access to everyone and anyone in whatever industry possible, and more money than there should be possible. We probably could be using that money and giving it back to the government to help us figure out all the issues and all the tariff stuff, and Lord knows how. We'll focus on them in a little bit. Right now, we're focusing on you and you alone. If given this opportunity, what would be the dream Lulu VanHoagland project?
Oh, the one I'm currently working
on. Just actually getting the chance to make that a reality.
Yeah. Like, I think some people have lots of stories in them, and I have this one and I have the doll one, and I don't know about anything beyond that.
Okay.
But this story, if nothing else, is what... How do I explain it? For anything else, I would not bother doing this much research or putting this much effort into it, but I really care about all the characters that I have. Except for one who I really hate, but you're supposed to hate him. It's fine.
That's the point.
I think so I read Dungeon Meshi, which I did not think I would like, but I loved it actually. And just seeing how much care she put into not only the culture of the world, but how much research she would have to do to have made that. Designing radically different body types for all the races and stuff. Like, she made me realize it was possible.
Yeah.
And so, for anything else, like, she also loves all of her characters very, very much. And I want to put the same love and care into this. And if I don't make anything else beyond this, if this is my only legacy, I'm fine with that.
Well, we'll do everything that we can to help make this the brightest, most shining legacy that you could ever have. Point blank.
This is my Elf Quest, people. This is it.
Elf Quest. Is that the tentative name for it? Elf Quest or whatnot? No.
I mean, do you know about Elf Quest as a comic?
I don't know.
Okay, so Elf Quest was the passion project of an artist named Wendy Peeney.
Okay.
And she's also the original Red Sonja, which is kind of crazy.
Okay.
But she had been brewing that story since she was a child, and I think spiritually the story that I'm working on has a lot in common with it, which I didn't realize until I actually sat down and read some of Elf Quest. But her passion for her work, like she had such strong beliefs that like people needed to read her story that she moved hell to be able to make it happen.
Okay.
And I mean, she was doing that at a different time, like during the 80s or whatever, and so these sorts of things aren't really possible now. But the fact that she exists like as a person with the work that she made is just an inspiration in general. ElfQuest is a story about people that lost their home trying to find a new one. And I think I'm attracted to narratives like that. Watership Down is also my favorite book. And while that's not people, it's, rabbits trying to find a new home after their warren was destroyed.
Right.
And I just, she is such a huge inspiration in that way. Because, like, she made it work. Her and her husband, they really believed enough and put in all the work, and they made it happen for themselves. Nice. Which not everybody's willing to do.
Oh, of course not. No, not everyone is going to have the patience for it at the end of the day, or the passion for it more than anything else.
And like she believed enough to not quit, which is my problem every week, where I'm like, I should just stop. This is causing me so many issues. Uh, but then I think about she she believed so hard. I'm like, I need to believe that hard.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I think that'd be. I think the more you go down this path, and hopefully the lot more that you get a chance to really invest in this kind of stuff than you already have, hopefully that passion like Brian's burns brighter than ever before. And no matter what you think, you're like, I gotta tell this story. I need to get the story. The story needs to get out there more than anything else. But
hopefully we get there.
Yeah, hopefully we do. But sadly, we do have to get down from that dream scenario, and we have to get back to reality. And I'll ask the ever so generic question. Where do you hope to see yourself, say, 5 to 10 years from now?
I just hope to have some of this done.
That's a good start. That's a good step in the right direction more than anything else.
I think in a year, if this conversation happened like last year,
mm-hmm.
I would be able to have something more hopeful to say. But given all of the issues occurring in our country at the moment, it's really hard to even have hope that things can happen in the next 5 or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so at this point, I'm just like, I just have to keep researching and writing and drawing. And I don't want to get my hopes up and be like, oh, I'll be here. I just have to keep doing the work, and wherever it takes me is where it takes me.
Absolutely. That's a good mentality to have, especially given all the chaos and all the obstacles that we've been given, especially as of late. That mentality can hopefully carry you miles, ages, Lord knows how long at this point.
We'll see.
Absolutely. As we start to wind down the interview, Lulu, I just have one last question I want to ask you. Obviously, you are deeply entrenched in art in one form or fashion at this point. It's kind of something that's just always been there, and I would find it really hard to see you not be a part of it in one form or fashion. How important is art, not just for you, but for the world as a whole?
We have nothing without it. Like, is the only way to put it. Not just me as a person, but like as a society. I think a lot of the issues we're facing, there's obviously like all of these things are both complicated and not complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about how artistry in general is no longer prioritized, because if you think about it, right, it's not that artists of the ancient times were living in luxury. Sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. But you would have time. You would master your skill. And that is just not a thing that anybody is really given the time to do at the moment. Sure, you could go to school, but at least in my experience, and I not only went to art school, I also went to trade school. I am a licensed esthetician in the state of New York, so I'm also a skincare specialist.
Okay.
You learn by doing. You don't learn in the school.
Right.
The school gives you the bare minimum, and then you have to learn outside of it. And to just be thrown to the wolves and not be able to master anything technically, visit places, like build up a wealth of inspiration, it's making people's work less interesting. And I think less interesting art is a societal issue, personally. We have nothing without it. Art is literally in everything you own. It's in everything you do. Do you think an artist didn't design the house you live in?
Right.
Do you think an artist didn't design the building you live in to go to work? City planning. Just the packages on the things that you buy. It's literally everywhere, and it's the least valued thing.
So trust me.
We need better artists. We need more time to develop our skills. I'm sorry I keep blathering on,
No, no,
but
no. You're good. You're good. Keep blathering. Keep blathering.
when and I know this is like a loaded word, people are going to feel how they feel about it. When fascists want to take over society, one of the first things they destroy is art.
Yeah.
And so to have things like AI uh trying to imitate artists, trying to take over the work of the human mind is a destruction of creativity. And it's only going to eat itself because it can't develop anything new on its own. And people don't realize the danger they've gotten themselves into with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think all of that is wonderfully worded and a very strong statement, if I do say so myself. Um, Lulu, that is all the questions I have for you. I've already showered you with Lord knows how much praise up to this point, but I'm gonna shower you a little bit more because it's my podcast. I do what I want. Um, look, like I said, at the very beginning, ever since I first saw you at MomoCon this year, I have been just absolutely enamored. Your art style is something that I instantly gravitated towards, and seeing the ways you've been able to kind of illustrate like different kinds of pains and different kinds of emotions or whatnot is something that I couldn't get enough of, and I wanted to get so much more of it. And I'm so glad that you took me up on the offer to send me a friend request on Discord, and here we are months later finally making this happen, getting the chance to do the research for you, and especially now getting the chance to chat with you and get more of an insight on you, and kind of where you're coming from, and the inspiration and the passion that you truly have for this stuff. Like, there is no amount of like level or scaling that I can tell you for the amount of love and respect that I have for you and what you do, and it makes me just so excited to see what you're going to be doing going forward, especially this incredible concept that we talked about over and over and over again. Like, it was something that I was so curious about whenever I saw even like the inkling of it and seeing kind of the different aspects that you were able to illustrate, like the bare minimum, like teasing the idea. But now that we actually got a chance to talk about it, like I cannot tell you how badly I want to see this thing get somewhere. I cannot tell you how badly I want to see how far you can be able to tell this story, because I could tell with the amount of love and passion and care and thought that you've already put into this and continue to put into this. Whatever you're going to put out there, it's going to be incredible, and I'm going to eat up every single ounce of color that you put on the page in one form or fashion. The long and the short of it is Lulu, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you so much for putting yourself out there, especially with some of these pieces, because like you've illustrated, it hasn't been easy to put out such strong emotions like that into something that is consumable for a lot of people. Like, the fact that you've been able to put that out there and it be stunning no matter what the circumstances, and the fact that you have so much love and care for what you do, it makes me excited and ecstatic for whatever you're going to be doing next, no matter what it is. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, if people want to see why exactly I have been gushing about this stuff for a good hour and a half or however long we've been recording up to this point, go ahead and plug your stuff for the people at home. Where can people see more about you and what you're up to?
So I mostly post on Instagram, although I'm taking a break from doing that because I had a bit of a crash out. It was not good.
That's valid.
But you you can see most of my things on Instagram under Lulu VanHoagland, but it's spelled Hoagland.
Right.
Weird Dutch last name stuff. As the same name on Blue Sky.
There you go. And don't worry, I'll have like the proper spelling as like part of the title, and also any of those links and then some that you may have missed, I'll put them in the description below. Especially like, for example, like your Etsy store and stuff, because I want people to be able to. No, you're good. I was gonna say I want people to see this stuff. I want people to get some more of that stuff and show that love and support right back to you. Because if nothing else, like, look, I'm gonna have I had the cardigan posted up earlier, and I'm gonna have it posted up right here. Get this cardigan, people, if you can. I know there's only a limited amount of sizes left, but if it fits you, get that, please. It looks great. Do you have any final words before we do sign off?
Read lots of books and make interesting work.
There you go.
I believe in everybody. There needs to be more artists out there.
I agree with that wholeheartedly, a million times percent or whatnot. And yeah, please go read a book out there more than anything else, people. Like, don't trust me. Don't get me wrong.
Read lots of books. It will do good for your brain.
Like, don't get me wrong. I appreciate you guys listening to podcasts like this one or whatnot. But also, yeah, go read a book, please. And with that, all I have to say as well is, if you can, for the people at home, if you can, please pay your artists.
Yes.
Tell me what's wrong, tell me sparks in motion. Sing me a song, tell me your eyes can open. Show me it all, pick me up in the car you drove when you used to call. Show me it all.
Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If this is your first time listening, I greatly do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Like I said in the intro, Lulu's art was just absolutely amazing, and I knew I had to get her on, and thank goodness that we did and had such a fun conversation. Lulu, if you've gotten up to this point, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, especially considering the fact it's been a good couple months since I even talked to you, let alone message you. You know, I've been really struggling when it comes to money stuff as of late. I'll be blunt. It's just, bills and credit card debt and student loans just all piling up at once, and it sucks. But despite all that, one of the things that I do love and appreciate is whenever I do get the opportunity the chance to go out and get to meet people, despite how much or how little my funds may be. That's why I was glad to talk to Lulu, because I got the chance to meet her at MomoCon. But God, that took a beating on my wallet. I gotta learn to get better about spending my money at cons, because I get there and I'm just like excited for all the stuff that I see, and I want to support everyone, but I can't. It's a habit I gotta break, and I know that's on me first and foremost. But more than anything else, like, going to a con gives me the opportunity to connect with people that I may never have before, whether it be people that I have only got a chance to meet online, or even people that I've only seen online but never got a chance to chat with. It's always cool to finally just like make my presence known and to really show my love and appreciation for all these people. I'm so lucky that so many of the guests I've met at this point, I've been able to meet at cons previously and get a chance to bring them on here and talk about incredible stuff. I mean, Alex Rashawn is probably the best example of that. Jake Neutron, 1,000 Dead Corpses, Lulu today, and Lord knows however many others I'm going to be bringing on in one form or fashion at one point or another. It's always an honor and a pleasure more than anything else. And I sincerely hope I can still get the opportunity to do that. Again, it's so much harder with how my wallet has been and how money has been just in general. But if I can find a way, if there is a will, there will be a way. Because if nothing else, I love the atmosphere, and I love being there with the people to just connect on a different level. I just got to learn to get better about not spending a million different, like thousands of dollars on new posters that you're going to be seeing behind me that you rarely even noticed. I'm of course joking. I do encourage you guys to be a part of that community in one form or fashion. If you haven't been to a con before, if there's a local one, I recommend just going to it. If you have been to a con before, let me know in the comments about your experience, because I always love hearing about how the con scene has always been a very welcoming experience more than anything else. And I sincerely hope that whether it be through cons, whether it be through the podcast, whether it be through some other mean, you get to be a part of a community that truly welcomes you and makes you feel at home more than anything else.